Hey guys, welcome to Trinity Football League Fantasy Forecast for week number 5. Hope everyone had a great week. No, I had a good week. Got lucky this past week. I'm thankful for that. Moved me to 3-1. So hopefully everyone is ready for week number 5 coming up. I think the big news this week is trades. Trades don't happen much in the NFL. A lot of times, just for some reason or other, teams don't trade players, especially during the season in the NFL. It's not like baseball or basketball where they're all the time trading players around. But the NFL pretty much stands pat, and they don't do a lot of trading. But this week we had 2 trades, and 2 trades that could have some fantasy implications. First trade this week we had was Marshawn Lynch getting traded to Seattle for some draft picks, and Buffalo. This has several implications for several teams, or for several players in fantasy football. It automatically gives Marshawn Lynch a bump up because now he's running behind the Seattle offensive line, and that makes him a little bit better. Plus, he doesn't have to do the timeshare thing quite as much as he did in Buffalo. There was a 3-headed monster in Buffalo. There was Marshawn Lynch, Fred Jackson, and C.J. Spiller. Seattle has Forsett and Washington, but it looks like that Pete Carroll's going to try to make Marshawn Lynch the man and get the bulk of the carries. I was able to pick him up a couple of weeks ago, hoping that he would get traded to Green Bay Packers when Ryan Grant went down, but Packers didn't pick him up, unfortunately. I think he would have been much better suited for fantasy purposes in Green Bay. But nonetheless, he's on my bench, and if I need him, I've got a good, viable fourth running back there. As far as other implications, unfortunately it makes Justin Forsett an afterthought, a third down back or a change of pace back, and for fantasy purposes, that's sort of kiss of death there for him. So he takes a downgrade or doesn't become as viable a running back. As far as the running backs in Buffalo, it automatically gives an uptick probably to Fred Jackson and C.J. Spiller. Depending on who wins that job, I kind of think it's going to be Fred Jackson, but that's just me. I'm sure they'll give C.J. Spiller a chance to win the job, also being a rookie. So we'll see how that plays out. But for the ones that own C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson, it should actually help both of those guys because there's not Marshawn Lynch there in the way to steal carries. The other big trade, which was a shock to me, was Randy Moss being traded to the Minnesota Vikings. That's going to be a huge upheaval in fantasy world because it affects so many players. It affects Randy Moss, of course, going to Minnesota because now he becomes the downfield threat for Brett Favre. And I think that Childress is going to probably make sure that Randy gets thrown to more than one time like he was on Monday night with the Patriots. So it helps. I think it actually helps Moss somewhat. Moss is still Moss, but it helps him somewhat. I think it actually helps Percy Harvin, and that Percy Harvin will now not be the main focus of the passing game, and that will allow Percy to go downfield in single coverage rather than double coverage a lot of times. So I think it actually helps Percy Harvin a little bit. Definitely helps Brett Favre. Now Brett Favre's got a couple of weapons. He was missing Sidney Rice, I think, and his injury, it really hurt. Sidney Rice was hurting Brett Favre and his numbers. So I think this automatically helps Brett Favre and gives him a little bit of an uptick. As far as the New England side, probably doesn't hurt or help Wes Welker one way or the other. He's going to get his catches no matter what. But I think the person that it really helps is Brandon Tate, because now he takes over the Moss role of stretching the field. As soon as I heard about this trade, and I was at my computer at the time, I immediately went over and as soon as I could and picked up Brandon Tate to add to my receiving core. Got to see how he's going to do, being a North Carolina guy and all. So we'll see how that works out. So we see that trades not only in the league but in the NFL have huge ramifications for players and their teams and owners and their teams. Well, let's go into this week though. Last week I was 5-1 for the week. Gives me a 16-8 mark for the year. Not too bad. This is about as good as I've been at this point in time since I've been doing these. So usually I get off to a slow start and then kind of get better as time goes on. But I've gotten off to a pretty good start this year, being 5-1. The only loss this week was that Monday night meltdown of Randy Moss and the unbelievable play of the Patriots defense. Poor old Craig went from 16 points up with Moss going against the Patriot defense to losing by 20. I mean, that's almost unheard of. So condolences to Craig, but way to go to Dwight and the Jokers for pulling out their first win of the year. That was just great. So congratulations to Dwight for the first win. Let's go into this week's matchups and predictions. Let's see. Let me pull that up here real quick. And we've got some good matchups this week. I think things are going to start coming together as far as our standings go. We're going to see some separation here, maybe, barring any upsets. But and I'm sure there will be probably one or two this week, but we'll see. The first matchup I've got is the LA Avengers versus the Thomasville Jokers. Jokers won their first one this past week, are 1-3, but they're going up against the Avengers this week, the only undefeated team left. And I believe that at the end of the week that the Avengers will still be undefeated. It's going to be close. The Jokers have improved their team. Things are coming together for them. Their players that they drafted are beginning to score up to their potential. And I think this will be a great week for both teams, but I believe the Avengers just have just a little bit too much for the Jokers. I know the Avengers got several on bye, but they've got good replacements, so it's a very deep team, and they should take the measure of the Jokers this week. The next one, is the Ligers versus the War Dogs. This one's kind of hard for me. This one was the hardest for me to figure this week because, well, for one thing, when you have several on bye, and I'm not sure exactly who we're going to put in there to replace the ones that are on bye, kind of have to guess. Some of the guesses are pretty easy, some of them are not. And some of you guys don't put in your rosters until Saturday or Sunday, which is fine. But it makes it a little harder for me. I just have to sort of say, well, you know, what are they going to put in there? And I just sort of had to guess at it. But anyway, I think I've got it pretty well figured out. I think that the Ligers are going to take the measure of the War Dogs this week. The War Dogs have Richard Mendenhall, which is one of their key pieces, on bye this week, and are it's a little hard to find a competent backup running back on the waiver wire right now. The waiver wire is pretty empty in our league because of the deep benches and everything. But the War Dogs probably are going to suffer a little bit by not having that backup running back that they need. And I believe that the Ligers will take the measure of the War Dogs. The next one is the Fairgrove Mad Dogs versus the Intimidators. My Mad Dogs have been the lucky dog the last 2 weeks. I believe that's going to end against the Intimidators. The Intimidators are just too strong. I'm going to have to score a bunch of points to win this one, and I don't think I can do it. sit here and I have gone through the numbers and tried to figure out matchups, and I'll probably go right to the very last minute trying to figure out exactly who I'm going to put in this lineup to try to beat Derek's team. But I think by the end of the week, it's just going to be a futile effort that I'm not going to quite get it done. So I think that the Intimidators will take the measure of the Mad Dogs this week. Finally picked against myself, and I'm probably right on the money with it too, unfortunately. The next matchup is the Wallaroos versus Seagrove's Shake and Bake. Wallaroos are 2-2. Shake and Bake's 3-1. This is another matchup that could go either way, but Drew Brees is going up against that Arizona defense, and my goodness, Arizona is just horrible, absolutely horrible. And Seagrove's players have just got too many good matchups this week, and I believe that the Wallaroos will take the L, and the Seagrove Shake and Bake will get the win in this week. The next one is the Soaring Condors, Craven Pines, Sean's team, versus Michael Sirianni's Italian Stallions. Mike's got a couple guys coming back this week. They've got Adrian Peterson coming back. Brett Favre will be throwing to Randy Moss over and over and over again. Hopefully be connecting with a couple of those, and that it's going to be a tough one. Craven Pines have some good matchups. Hopefully Steven Jackson will be back. It's really, this matchup's going to probably hinge on whether Andre Johnson is going to play or not. I'm going to say that Andre Johnson will be in there. He's not going to be 100%, of course, but he's going to be in there. And I believe that it's going to be a close one, but in a close one, I believe Craven Pines will pull it out over the Stallions. So we'll see if that one comes back to haunt me. The last matchup is Sophia Slawcats versus L-Town Beatdown. L-Town's getting better. They improved. Things are looking up for them, I think. Maybe their players will finally be start scoring up to their potential. But I believe the Slawcats have got too much for them this week, and I look for the Slawcats to pull this one out over Beatdown. All right, that's it for the week. Leave me a message over on the message board when I post these. Let me know what you think, and good luck to everyone. We'll see you later.